as planned.
All right, now streaming live on Facebook. It looks like.
It says it is. Let me check Facebook though. Yes, okay. Yeah, we are live and set to go.
Awesome. Well, my name is Andrew. I work for Bikes4Humanity PDX, and usually we work with Repair PDX and their Repair Cafe model to do free repairs, maintenance, kind of bike things at the 3 Fix-It fairs that the city graciously puts on. This year, we did not do any of that, so we're happy to be doing something to keep this partnership with Repair PDX and the Fix-It Fair and Bikes4Humanity, and to kind of model a self-sufficient kind of mindset that we have to get the skills like out into the world so people can manage this stuff, either one, so they don't have to take their bike to a bike shop to get it fixed. They can do it themselves and just already start riding it. And 2, if you're out in the world and you get a flat tire, then you can fix it yourself. You don't have to feel stranded, or if everything's working fine, afraid that you would be stranded on the bike. And the last thing is, in terms of self-sufficiency, is that if you're able to patch your tube, there's a reuse component, which is especially exciting on Earth Day. As Wing noted, every day is Earth Day. Never forget. Earth Day is a good reminder of that. Yeah, if you take your bike into a bike shop, they're not going to patch the tube. There's no real way to guarantee that. So it's the ultimate self-sufficient hack that you can have to reuse your tube. They're just going to swap it out with a new one, and there are ways of reusing tubes. There's a place called Cycle Dog in Portland that makes dog collars and dog leashes out of them, and we will take donations of tubes and then distribute them, as we did for this workshop, with some participants ahead of time to get used tubes out into the world, and then we'll use them into our own bikes and make them available for free for anybody that comes to our shop. Yeah, so we're excited to be doing this. We were able to get 13 kits out into the world, so folks can have access to used pumps that are donated to us, used tubes, and as well as levers and patch kits to be able to do that. Yeah. Anything else we need to address before we get started? Wing or Lauren or Harmony?
No, just folks can hover over their screen and you'll see some controls like chat. And I am just realizing that I can turn on the auto transcript. So you should now see captions, which if you don't want to see, you can turn off. And then also folks watching live on Facebook can leave comments. And if you have a question, we'll be monitoring the comments as well and get those answered. And I'll put that in the Facebook comment section as well. I think that's about it for housekeeping.
Very cool. Then my colleagues, we're just a staff of 3 right now. The other 2 happen to be filmmakers. And so I said we were doing this and I was going to make a little video, but they jumped on the opportunity and did something a lot more professional and something that I don't have the skills to do. So I'm really grateful to Dan and Aleda, my 2 colleagues, that made a video. So if you're ready for a wing, we can start with the intro to that and then do the kind of hands-on demonstration with my bicycle right here, and then have time for some questions. So we kind of got 3 sections, taking the wheel off, actually 4 sections, taking the wheel off, taking the tire off, patching the tube, and then putting it all back on. So if you are ready, Wing, then we can do the intro video.
Today we're going to walk you through how to patch a punctured inner tube, aka fix a flat tire. We'll include how to remove your wheel from your bike, how to remove your tire and tube from the wheel, how to patch your tube if it is patchable, how to reinstall your tire and tube, and then how to reinstall your wheel onto your bike.
Was that too soon to stop? That was too soon, wasn't it?
Well, it's a good stopping point anyway. But yeah, that was the intro. That's my colleague Dan. And yeah, I can flip over my bike real quick and just show you. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. If you have anything on your handlebars, it's going to end up on the ground with weight over it. So this is a solid metal bell, which will not break. But if you have like a light or like a plastic horn or something, I've broken the plastic horn this way in my early bike repair days. Be mindful of that, computers, etc. So we're going to want to kind of rear it up by holding the handlebars. If you hold just the frame, the handlebars will get wonky and hit you in the face. Bikes are super elegant and not awkward when they're being ridden, but when they're not being ridden, they are pretty awkward. Also get the kickstand so you don't hit yourself with that. So rear it up, and then keep holding the handlebars if you can as you let this part go, kind of like you're dancing with the bike. And then let it rest. Mine's kind of resting at an angle because of the big bell here on the ground. Yeah, and then you're ready to take the wheels off. So if you want to do the next section, Wing, that'll be now.
The first step to patching your inner tube involves removing the wheel from the bike. We'll walk you through the 2 most common ways to remove a wheel from the bike. We'll start with a solid axle. Solid axle wheels are found on single-speed bikes, including but not limited to kids' bikes and cruiser bikes.
Hey, Wing, I don't think we can
Removing
see
this type of wheel requires a 15mm wrench.
Yeah, it's just a desktop
Yeah.
background. It looks like no video.
Sorry about that. That was a problem before. Let me see if I can get that fixed. Very sorry. Hold up. Does that look better?
100%.
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. Start from here? Or...
It looks good, yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Wheel from your bike, how to remove your tire and tube from the wheel, how to patch your tube if it is patchable, how to reinstall your tire and tube, and then how to reinstall your wheel onto your bike. The first step to patching your inner tube involves removing the wheel from the bike. We'll walk you through the 2 most common ways to remove a wheel from the bike. We'll start with a solid axle. Solid axle wheels are found on single-speed bikes, including but not limited to kids' bikes and cruiser bikes. Removing this type of wheel requires a 15mm wrench. or a crescent wrench adjusted to fit the nut. Rotate the wrench counterclockwise to loosen the nut. Loosen nuts on both sides with the wrench until you can loosen them by hand. If the bike has a coaster brake, use a Phillips head screwdriver to release the brake arm from the bike. Once the wheel is free, remove it from the frame. Removing the front wheel involves the same process, but without the complications of the chain. Let's move on to removing a wheel on a geared bike. Start by flipping your bike over and shifting the chain to the smallest cog on the rear wheel, or the outermost gear. Next, release the quick release lever. Loosen the skewer by turning it counterclockwise to unscrew it. Once the axle is loose, lift the derailleur gently to relieve chain tension while simultaneously lifting the wheel out of the frame.
Okay, that's a good stopping point there. Yeah, so the thinking, I obviously have a kind of classic 10-speed, and so the shifting is to get the least amount of the chain engaged with the rear sprocket. So the least amount of teeth is the hardest gear, so you're going to want to pedal there. And then you don't have as much chain engaged with the teeth. And it makes it easier to remove. And then you also have to worry about brake quick releases. So mine doesn't have a quick release. So what I might do there is when I put it back on, I'll wait to fully inflate it until it's back on the bike, because the tire's going to have a hard time passing the brake there if it's fully inflated. If you have like a mountain bike or a hybrid, you'll have brakes with quick releases, either a V-brake or a cantilever, and then some caliper brakes like this one, they'll also have like a little quick release that will open the brake and allow the tire to go out. So now that I've got it in the hardest gear, so you'll click into like 6, 7, or 8 if you got like a grip shifter or a trigger shifter. But mine just obviously has this old style little shifter here on the down tube. Or in this case, it's upside down the up tube. Just kidding. Okay, so this has a quick release. So I'm going to open that and then unscrew it. So from this side counterclockwise, from this side counterclockwise, and then kind of pull the derailleur out there. And since my tire does have air in it, it's not going to pass here at the brake. So take off the Presta valve cap, unscrew the Presta valve nut, and then deflate it. Like so. And now we should have a little bit more success. Oop. And it's still caught in there. This is going to get a clean finger, pretty dirty, so you can use a rag also. Now I've got a nice chain mark on my finger. So I've got a rag handy here. Just to clean the tire a little bit, because you're going to be touching it a lot. And this is also a good opportunity to clean your tire, which can benefit from a little bit of soap and water occasionally, to prevent it from kind of drying out and then having your sidewall crack and then not getting as much life out of your tire. And it also just makes it look a little bit nicer. And as you're doing this as well, the innermost part, the lip of the tire, also known as the bead, you want to break that free, and that'll make it easier to take your tire off. As you kind of clean it. All right, does anybody have any questions about taking the wheel off? How best to get a bike, if you don't have a bike stand, upside down to stabilize it?
Okay, will you look at this? So we got this guy off. Easy, right? This one, it could just be rusty, maybe. But
Also, is it supposed to, when you turn it counterclockwise, is it supposed to pull out?
I unscrewed the other side of it, but I think that this is supposed to be like a quick release, and it's not. Is it probably just rusted? Or?
Bike was just outside for years, so I think
Okay.
everything might be good.
So there's on the quick release, there's a lever and a nut. Are you able to turn those against each other?
This and this?
That's one side, so that's the lever. And then on the other side,
I got that piece off.
oh, so you got and
There's
then
still,
Oh, is there still?
so if you got the nut off,
this piece.
Oh, do I need this other piece off too?
you just need to loosen it. So if you're just spinning it, then the other side will spin too.
Yeah,
So you need to counter it.
yeah, it does.
Either hold one side and spin it, or hold this side and spin this one, kind of thing. And it's definitely something that can rust if it's been left out.
Yeah.
Begin some movement. And if you spun it a little bit, then it should, you don't need to take it totally off. It just needs
It's
to
done. We already took it out all the way.
It's too
Sorry.
late.
Okay, it's no problem. And then do you have it so the chain is in the smallest cog?
Yeah.
Then you should just be able to kind of pull the derailleur away and then pull it up.
What do you mean pull the derailleur away? Is it this guy?
Yeah, exactly. So the derailleur kind of wants to come into the slot where the wheel goes. You just need to kind of pull it away and then create a space between what's called the dropout and just, getting the wheel out.
So it wants to come out this way, I think, right? Yeah.
That looks successful.
We got it.
All right.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna get this back together. I already know.
Okay.
Okay, so
Now we're caught up.
in the example of my front wheel, I've got a basket on the bike, so I need to actually take this all the way off, which is annoying because the quick release is holding on this basket stay here. But I'm not going to do that all the way because I'll have to deflate that one too. But just to let you know, sometimes you do actually have to take the whole quick release skewer out in a case like that. So just getting the wheel off, flipping the bike over. Does anybody have any more questions before we get to the actual removal of the tire?
I do, Andrew. Were you just using neat Dr. Bronner's to clean it with?
Yes. It is very watered down.
Very watered down, Dr. Bronner's. Okay.
Yeah, it's
That's
the,
what I use for everything, so that works.
it definitely works. If you're using any kind of soap for your wheel, just make sure that you really get it off the rim, or else the soap will get onto the brake pads and then they'll be a little more slippery than you want. But otherwise, like Simple Green, Dr. Bronner's, things that are like earth friendly are good enough for bike stuff. You can use, some people use more heavy degreasers, but if it's toxic at all, then I don't really see the need for using it on bikes, except for like petroleum chain lube, which unfortunately is the best option. All right, so we're ready for the next part, taking the tire off. We can go to the video. My hand's already.
Locate the valve stem on the tire and start on the opposite end of the wheel. Use your tire lever to pry the lip of your tire off the rim. Once one lip of the tire is off, begin to pry the other lip. Remove any valve caps or nuts if you have not yet. Free the tire from the wheel. Remove the inner tube from the tire. Next, pump air into the tube and try to locate the puncture. Listen for air leaking the tube, or feel for air. You can use your lips to feel for air leaking the tube, as the lips are very sensitive. Punctures are often very small and nearly invisible, but once you have located the hole, use a Sharpie to circle it so you don't lose it. Next, use your fingers to gently feel around the inside of the tire for anything that may have caused the flat, including glass, metal, or thorns. If you find foreign material, remove it from the tire.
Okay, that's our next stopping point. Cool. So there's some vocabulary there. Dan was calling this the lip of the tire. The bead is the more official term. This is the valve, the Presta valve. The other one is Schrader. That's the same one you have on cars, a little bit wider. Yeah, and then you got your rim. So you can think of the rim and the tire bead as like two sets of lips. The rim has the tire bead inside of it, like this. And so what you're doing is you're taking the bead and putting it out on the outside, and then taking the other part of the bead and putting it on the outside, and then you have them kind of separate. So the idea of you want to start opposite. So this is 6 o'clock, you start at 12 o'clock. That's because the bead is a lot more flexible here than here, because the valve is going to keep it kind of in that position. So the tools we need, we got tire levers. So folks that requested kits last week, I gave them a variety. I like these ones, they're colorful. Pedro's tire levers. And they got this cool little race flag logo. Some folks like skinnier ones that have like a steel core, so they're a little bit stronger. These ones will break, but they are the most effective. And then this is just a Park Tool basic one, again, kind of skinny. And then just a simple plastic one here. So I'm gonna go with my pink Pedros here. Gonna treat this as 6 o'clock, go to 12 o'clock, and I'm gonna pull the tire out. And really what I was doing before was getting the bead loose so that I could pull as much of the tire away from the valve so that it's all kind of pushed this way. I can pop that into the bead here, and if I'm lucky, just push like that. Hey, okay, that is a successful start. And then go the other way. Go back over here. And just a safety concern, if you do have a puncture in your tire, you're going to want to be very careful doing all this. You want to inspect it beforehand carefully. You don't just want to go like this because you might have a nail or some kind of metal shard that comes off of car brakes. All kinds of like little metal staply things might be stuck in your tire. So with your sensitive, fleshy hands, be careful doing this. So I have it all the way off the one side. So now I'm going to want to get it all the way that way. Some folks will just take the tube out at this point and leave the tire on there. That's one way to do it, but I like to go all the way with getting the tire off so I can inspect the inside of the wheel and the inside of the tire a little more effectively. There we go. So we got 3 separate things now. The wheel is now the rim, the tire, and the tube. So I'm going to drape that there. And again, carefully going to look to see there's no thorn, tack, piece of metal, staple, nail. I worked at the bike shop at the aerial tram, Go By Bike, and so we would get lots of flats every day because like 400 people park their bikes there. So, 1 in 100 might get a flat in a single day. And somebody had a nail. It went through the tire, through the tube, through the rim strip, and through the rim. So there was a nail all the way here. It was pretty gnarly. So that's a wheel replacement situation. You also want to inspect the tire liner, also known as the rim strip. I guess the tire liner is a different thing. Rim strip, to make sure that it's covering where the spokes engage, because if it does migrate to one way, the tube can hemorrhage into this hole on the inside of the rim and explode that way, or it might just wear. So this looks really well installed. There is no way that the tube could be damaged on the inside. So then you want to check the tire itself, and then to really figure out what's going on, you let the tube let you know, because sometimes if it's just, especially if you have a bigger like mountain bike tire, you can have a thorn totally in one of the knobs and not see it because it's just recessed, and it'll just be ever so slightly poking out into the inner tube. So the way to figure it out is you blow up the tube and then find where that hole is. Mine is not a good example because it doesn't have a flat. This is just for demonstration purposes. So you pump it up, screw the nut on, and then, as Dan said in the video, you can use your lips, you can try to listen. If you do this after a few passes, you don't feel anything on your face, you don't hear anything, you can get a bucket of water. Even if you put a little soap in the water, then that will make better bubbles, and then you'll be able to identify where it's coming from more visually. But my tube seems okay. And if you have a spare tube, then you can do all this part later and just put in the spare tube, save the other one for patching. But yeah, so you might find different things. This one, let's see, it might be hard to identify, but you can kind of see kind of tears or just stress on the tube. So that will happen if it's deflated and you ride. It'll move in the tire and kind of wear. It'll also happen on the rim strip. So it's kind of hard to identify, but there's lots of little scuffs. So if you have a bunch of scuffs and they've worn through, so the tube is no longer is kind of all over it is damaged, you can't really patch that. Other examples of things you can't patch are if there's something with the valve, so if it's torn here, which will often happen, you can't patch that. If it's blown out and it just kind of looks like a big hole where there's just like shreds of inner tube, you can't really patch that. And then often people will say if the patch has failed, you can't really patch that. I have had success taking the patch off, sanding it down, and repatching it. So there's not necessarily a right or a wrong way to patch a tube. You're doing a better job. Often it won't work, and it's not your fault. It's the official way to make it work. Okay, any questions on taking the tube tire off of the rim? Looking for the cause of the flat or anything related to what we've done up to this point.
Hey, Andrew, I thought would you be able to, I know you already took the tire off, but maybe just like a close to the camera demonstration of how you use the tire lever to actually get the tire off. Even
Totally,
though I know you took it off, but maybe just a quick demonstration.
And I think I'll actually do this one because I wanted to clean this tire as well. So this is an opportunity to do that. And we can do it a little bit more close up. And yeah, any other questions while I get this set up?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. I'm a little new to this. I don't have a camera. So I got these two different types of tools, and are they both tire levers?
Yeah, there's a variety of styles. This one is a bigger, just plastic one.
Okay.
And then this one is smaller.
So the one with the arrow is equivalent to the hook one.
Yes.
Okay.
And then go ahead.
And then what's the back side of them for? Is that for putting the tire back on?
This part here?
The opposite side of like where the side you use to take the tire off. There's the other side of the lever is like just a little like curved.
Yeah, so kind of like looks like a clothes hanger kind of.
Yeah,
like,
the other side though, upside down. The upside down side.
Yeah, so I'll demonstrate that.
Well, you didn't get to that yet. Okay.
That's
sorry.
kind of that's like a style thing. I think those are super useful for people that have really skinny like racing tires, because those ones are really hard to pry off. So again, gonna find the valve and I'm gonna go make this 6 o'clock and do the opposite side and do 12 o'clock here, and then loosen the bead. And some good ASMR kind of bead noise here. All right, and now we're ready. So with this one, you're gonna wanna scoop in like so. I'll do it right by the spoke to show you. This little part hooks into the spoke like that. So you can hold that position right there. And like I said, this is most important with skinnier. So this is a 28 millimeter, so it's a road tire, but Really skinny ones are like, 18, 23, 25, and those are a lot harder to get off. So
Andrew, can you hold that up to the camera a little bit?
Yeah.
Cool.
And can undo that and redo that. So going to get the bead, gonna find it there, scoop. There we go, and then put it there. And now that I have that one ready to go, gonna go here. And so this is another way to do it. It's an extra step, but sometimes if the tire is really stuck on there, this is useful. And you get to see what these fancy things do. So those are that style, the little hook, and then this one, same idea. It just kind of hooks in like that. And now that you have that, push away. And there we go. So the bigger the tire, the floppier it is and the easier it is to get it.
Hey, Andrew, we have a question in the chat. Can you use something other than a tire lever to take off the tire if you don't have a lever?
So you don't, if it's a road tire, probably not. You can use a butter knife, but you're going to risk damaging the rim, which is aluminum. Usually, if you have a steel rim on an older bike, you might be able to do that. But steel, butter knife, aluminum rim, it's a recipe to damage the rim. You also might pop the inner tube. You can rub against it with the metal. So if you have something that's plastic or a lighter metal or something like this, and especially if you have a bigger like mountain bike tire or hybrid or like cross tire, then you can get away with just maybe using like a plastic like butter knife that you get with like a cream cheese bagel where they make you put the cream cheese on. If you store one of those for some reason, which I do. Something like that, but that was part of the reason that we were excited to get the kits out, just to make sure that this is a really simple thing, but it's inexpensive, but it's really the right tool for getting the tire off. Any other questions?
We do have a comment that some of the folks joining us are not able to get the tires off the rim, but we'll keep watching. I will say that I had a bike years ago that it was so difficult to get the tires off the rim. Does that mean that the tire's the wrong size, or does that indicate anything in particular?
There's, this is 700C, which is really pretty close to 27-inch. So I have seen a 700C tire, a little bit, ever so slightly smaller, go onto a 27-inch rim. And that is like a really awful puzzle to undo. But that would be super rare. I think the case is more, let's see, let's get this all the way off so we can look at the rim strip. So we got that half off, and then we're gonna get this part. There we go. I think it's more a case of the bead getting stuck in the side, where because the rim is like ever so slightly bent. So if maybe bent's not the right word, but slopey. So if the bead is here, then it's going to be a little bit higher this way. So you need to pop the bead away from there into the inside. And if you do that, then you'll get an extra millimeter to pull on the other side. It's kind of a complicated thing, but so let me try again. So if the bead is here, it's resting in the higher part of the rim. It's going to be a little bit higher up than the other side. So kind of work the bead like this, so it's loose, and then push it into the rim, and then just go all the way around, and then as it goes into that kind of valley in the middle of the rim, then you'll have a little bit more slack on the other side. So let me redo that, because I think that is something that in my own experience I've found to be super helpful in being able to do this. So, you know, starting out as a bike mechanic, it was not rare for me to spend like 30 minutes trying to get a tire off. You know, whether that is a donated bike at Bikes4Humanity or my own. I think on this one, I used to have 23 millimeter, really skinny tires. So to get the tire off on this side, I'm going to push the bead into the rim and then pull. So it's really taut and in the wheel on this side, and then all the slack is going to end up on the other side. So I'm going to pull and 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 pull. And then I've got that slack here, and then I'm going to get the tire lever. And if it's still not going, enlist the help of another tire lever, and then get them both. You can kind of work them out like that, like so. And then eventually you can do that. And be careful doing that. I've done that a bunch, like putting all of my force and then it goes, and then I catch myself on these hard spokes pretty bad. So that is another thing, safety wise, to keep in mind as you do this. So I hope that's a little bit more helpful, at least in terms of the idea that you're building muscle memory, you're applying abstract theory to something really simple in front of you, and it's kind of hard to make that work. It's just a matter of kind of practicing and then getting a sense of what works for you. Yeah, and hopefully you don't have the wrong size tire on the wrong size wheel, because that is a situation that's hard to undo. Okay, how is Jesse doing getting the tire off? Any luck?
That's not gonna happen. There's no fucking way that's gonna happen. Sorry. Give us 30 minutes or like an hour.
Yeah, I would just say like keep, you know, since the bike has been outside, you can take like soapy water and then just keep cleaning the tire and kind of working it. And then that might kind of waken it up. You know, rubber is like a natural thing, so it can stiffen and loosen. Stiffen from disuse, loosen from use. So that's my optimistic thought for you. Yeah, we can circle back to that if we want to get to the tube patching segment of the video, which is next.
Sounds good. I'll get that started. Sorry, it happened again. Okay, try this again.
Begin by sanding around the hole.
Oh, nice. Okay, I hear it now.
Next, apply a liberal amount of adhesive vulcanizing fluid and spread it around evenly. Let the vulcanizing fluid dry. This may take up to several minutes. Once dry, remove the patch from the metal wrapping and apply it directly on top of the hole. Press down firmly on the edges of the patch. Allow the patch and adhesive to set for a minute and then check to see if the patch is properly stuck onto the tube. Put some air in the tube and check to make sure no air is coming out of the patch.
Okay, there's our next stopping point. Thank you so much, Wang. So we did have some good demonstration tubes, but we included those with our kits. So I have 3 good tubes in our little bike repair setup storage situation in our kitchen. Obviously I have 2 on my bike, and then we had a spare that works for me and my girlfriend's bike. So I'm going to try something different. I'm going to grab a push pin and then create a dramatic puncture for the purposes of this workshop. So since it is Earth Day and our logo is green, and green is also just on theme, chosen a green push pin. And I'm going to just find a random spot. So there is the hole. As Dan mentioned in the video, getting a Sharpie to identify it is a good idea, because as it deflates, the hole will get smaller and it'll be harder to identify where it is. I don't know if anybody else noticed in the video, Dan said grab a Sharpie, but he had a dry erase marker, which reminds me that we are out of Sharpies at the bike shop. But yeah, if you do a circle and then kind of a crosshatch, you can see where the hole is in the center of the crosshatch. I'm very backlit here, but that's the idea. So you're going to want to have the patch centered around where the crosshatches meet. That's my little pinprick. Again, less visible now because it's deflated. And we're going to get our patch kit. We've got our vulcanizing fluid here, which kind of, vulcanizing is like a rubber manufacturer related term that's more sciencey than I know what to do with, but it melts down the rubber and then reforms a new layer. And so to get to the interior innards of the tube, you get your sandpaper. This is like fancy sandpaper with some rubber that came in a patch kit. There are all kinds. This is a good standard one. Park Tool has one. And I believe we set folks up that asked for kits with the Park Tool kit, which is going to have your vulcanizing fluid, your sandpaper, and then a variety of patches. So you get different kinds of holes, so you get different kinds of patches to cover them. So I'm going to do this for maybe 15 seconds just to make sure that I'm getting the outside of it good and scuffed up, so that we'll be better able to melt down the innards and then create a new skin. Again, it's like more sciencey than I'm capable of addressing, but that is what you're supposed to do. Somebody made the analogy once that I heard that it's like a broken sidewalk, you got to kind of get the top layer of it off to be able to add new concrete to it. Even as I'm saying it, I don't really totally understand it, but that's the basic idea. So
Oh, I was just going to interrupt real quick. Jesse, did you have a question? I see your Zoom hand raised.
We got ours free from the shop. Thank you so much. Does this have a hole in it that we're supposed to find, or are we make pretending?
So some of them had holes. So if they're folded, and especially if they're in a box, they are good to go. They're tested and ready. If it's just loose, then that one did have a hole. I think we had 13 kits and 5 like really good examples. So you can blow it up. Go ahead.
How do I blow it? How do I blow up this one? Like,
Do you
look at this.
have the Presta valve or the Schrader valve?
It doesn't look like a normal one.
Oh, that's the Presta. So you've got a nut on the tip of it. You're going to unscrew that counterclockwise. And then, so mine is a dual pump, so the smaller one works. So push that in and then do the seal with a little lever. And then pump it up.
This is actually coming.
I don't know if you can hear that, but.
So the piece that you had to unscrew before you put the pump on, is that supposed to fully come out?
No, it's just supposed to be loose enough so that it can go up and down. So that's to let air out and to let air in.
Like that. So I guess you did loosen it up.
In there, though. Maybe we just don't have the right pump.
Okay, so I guess we can't pump that one up. It's okay.
Well, you just have the so there's this. Mine also has a nice little illustration there.
We just have a little baby guy like that.
So some of them will have Presta, some will have Schrader, and then some are able to do both with just one nozzle. But yeah, if you just have the Schrader one, then you're out of luck with this unless you have an adapter, which also exists. So you screw the adapter onto the Presta and it makes it into Schrader.
Got it.
I'll also chime in here and say that as soon as this is done on the Fix It Fair Facebook page, there'll be a recording of this session. So you can go back right away or whenever you want to and review what Andrew is going over tonight.
Cool. Yeah, we can, since this does take a few minutes, I'm gonna get the vulcanizing fluid on here now. So I still have my little crosshairs and circle, and then I'm gonna add the fluid and it's gonna get blown on by the releasing air and then eventually cover it. Very dramatic and exciting. And then once it's covered and it's no longer releasing air, it will still make some bubbles, as you can see here. So you can kind of deflate that bubble, let it cause another skin.
Can you rotate it so that we can see the circle? Yeah.
Another bubble. So the bubbles will push through. It's just a matter of letting them kind of getting the fluid back over the hole, and then eventually the bubbles will just be held in. So that looks about right. So you just want like a good skin of the vulcanizing fluid covering, and then it'll dry and then make a new layer of rubber.
How long, did you say how long you usually give it to dry before you put the patch on?
I think Dan said like 5, I don't know what he said, but it could vary between like 3 minutes to like 10 minutes. It's so it's kind of wet and sticky now. You want it to be like tacky. So in between a solid and a liquid. So yeah, usually about 5 minutes is a good rule. So I'm gonna let that sit there. Any other questions while we wait for this part? My colleague Aleda has texted me. I don't know if you can see it. Dan is famous. He's our nice narrator in the video. Yeah, they did a really great job. So I only have 2 patches. This is like a long one, which is good if you get what's called a pinch flat, which happens if the tube gets kind of pushed onto the rim here. So it's in here, and then you hit like a curb or something, it'll push the tire down, and then it'll cause a slit in the tube by this rim. So a pinch flat, and it'll often be 2, so it'll look like kind of snake bites. And that one you want to use like a longer one. But ours is just like a literal pinprick from this push pin. So this one will work just fine. So still like a little wet. So I'll let that sit a little more. And now that I've done that, I'm going to add a little bit more just to make sure that our hole is covered. It's not going to be blowing out as much air now as it's deflated. So you can kind of think of it like sourdough bread. You know, it's like fermenting. There's just like air bubbles going everywhere, but eventually you want a nice solid like skin on the sourdough that's going to hold in the air bubbles. So it just expands as opposed to blowing open. If there's any sourdough enthusiasts in the workshop today. Yeah, so now I'm going to let that sit for a few more minutes because it's got that fresh coat onto it, which again, I don't think is official patch pedagogy, but it works for me. All right. And another consideration is if you do find the hole and it's right here, then you know where in the tire something has come and punctured it. So that is another kind of consideration. It's something, you know, as you develop your skills more to consider. So like I took off the tire this way, or I always have the valve next to the label right here. So then you can go to where the label is and think, okay, so the valve is here, the puncture is here, and then carefully go here, and then you can start to find for the blackberry thorn or whatever it is. And it's the kind of the fun, like mystery solving part of bike repair comes in, where you have to apply all of your your critical thinking to figure out what happened. So
as you're standing on the side of the road waiting to
exactly, yeah, I mean that's like that's Sherlock Holmes was out in the world. But again, yeah, so you can just put in a new tube, but if you still have something in the tube or in the tire that's going to cause another flat, then you do need to do that kind of on the road detective work. But also if you're like doing a bike ride out on country roads, it's a nice opportunity to pull over under a tree, have a snack, etc., and then apply your critical thinking to it. So here we go. I'm going to apply the patch, and I'm going to create like a nice flat surface with these fingers here. So a nice flat surface, and then push down like so, The lifespan of a tube. That is a great question. So if the tube is not, if the valve doesn't tear, if that's all good, then we get bikes donated from the 90s, even the 80s with the original tubes, and they are still totally viable. If the bike, wasn't left outside for too long, it's not gonna rot unless it's just sitting in water. Tubes can last a long time, and theoretically, a patch tube is stronger, it's more reinforced than a non-patch tube. So as you repair it, it just keeps getting more viable. So I've got that on there. There's this plasticky part. I should have noted. So there's the silvery part, you pull that away. And so as you expose the patch, you're going to want to put the orange side that's touching the silvery part onto the tire. And then, you want to take this off, but if you take it off before the patch sets, then you're just going to peel the whole patch off with it. So I'm going to let that sit. I'm going to keep kind of working it in. So this fancier sandpaper, this rubber part is meant for that. So just kind of applying pressure, getting it on there. And the way that I was taught, you leave the plastic on there because you don't want to risk tearing it off. And then you can get it off later. It'll just fall off in the tire another time. And then you got your moment of truth. Pump it back up. Valve in. So it seems to be holding. I don't hear anything. It's on there. It's not perfect, as you can see there. There's a little lip. So I'm gonna squeeze that on there some more. That might be because air is coming out, or it might be just that now it's no longer flat, it's a circle, so the edge is coming up. But you want to have the amount of vulcanizing fluid be bigger than the patch, so that all the edges of the patch are engaged. So I kind of feel good about that. It's on there. I'll keep squeezing it. And yeah, we got a patch tube. Hopefully will last many more years. All right, any questions on that before we get to the reinstall portion? And if not, then we can jump into it.
Cool. I will do that.
Release some air out of the tube, but keep it somewhat firm. Locate the tire pressure rating on the side of the tire, or where it lists PSI. Try to line up your valve cap with this rating when installing the tire, so that it's easier to find later when you have to inflate the tire. Insert the valve into the rim and evenly insert one lip of the tire into the rim. Work your way around the wheel until the entire lip is in the rim. Then insert the other lip and work your way backwards, making sure not to pinch the inner tube between the rim and tire. Inspect both sides of the tire to make sure it is fully seated on the rim. Put some more air into the tire. Reinstall the wheel on the bike. Guide the chain around the teeth of the smallest or most outer gear, and lift up on the derailleur to release tension as you insert the wheel. Press down on the axle to ensure that it is fully in the dropouts. Tighten the quick release skewer and close it. Flip your bike over and reattach the brake quick release. If you have cantilever brakes, your quick release will look like this. Ensure that the wheel is centered by squeezing the brakes and noting that both brake arms move evenly. If you have V-brakes, the attachment will look like this. To reinstall a single-speed wheel, start by guiding the chain onto the rear sprocket. Next, place the axle into the dropouts and reattach the coaster brake arm using a Phillips head screwdriver. Finger tighten the nuts on both sides of the axle, and before using a wrench, check to make sure the wheel is straight and the chain is taut. If so, use a wrench to tighten the nuts. Double check that the chain is properly tensioned. It should be tight, but not so tight that it is binding the gears when you pedal. Flip the bike over, and that's that.
Okay. I think he might have said happy patching, which was really cute and endearing, but it didn't come through for some reason there. But that's a really cute way to sign off that video. Anyway, round of applause for Dan and Aleda for putting that together.
Yay.
Yeah. I'll clap for one of those claps for them. And we'll put that on our YouTube, which I think we don't have many videos, but it's kind of inspired us to make more. So, like I said, they're both like very talented photographers and filmmakers. So that'll be a good opportunity for them. So I'm gonna do the first wheel tube tire quickly, and then for the second one, if there's any clarification stuff to, thank you, Jesse. If there's any clarification, I'll do the second one more slowly. So this is the one I patched. I'm gonna leave this for later just to make sure it holds air. If there's still a really small amount of air leaving out, then it'll deflate over like a few days, but it's hard to tell just right now. So this one, it's a little bit bigger than the tire, so I'm gonna deflate it a little bit, but still have some air in it. And then I'm gonna find the tire label here. You can also find the PSI And that's a really great way, oops, letting out more air, to line up the valve. And that way, if you forget how much air your tire needs, then you can just find the valve and it's there. I actually don't know if this one has a PSI, but whatever makes sense for you, line up the valve with that, and then you can remember the orientation of the tube to the tire. So you could just keep going like this and not have success. The trick is get a little bit in so that when you flip it around, that part stays in. You can keep getting more of it in. So this might be a little bit too deflated and floppy, but I will make it work. And hopefully, I've got my tube in my tire, the valve and the label matched up. And I'm going to find the hole in the rim. And then put the valve in, like so. Boop. So I've got just the valve in, and then this is all out, but I'm going to start to get this part of the bead back in, going around again. So the same way we started on this side to undo it and then finished here, we're going to redo it starting here and then finishing opposite. So you can see I've almost got it all the way on, just kind of pushing with the thumbs. Boop. So we have one side in, the other side still out. Go back to the valve, put that in there. If it gets really tricky, you might be tempted to use a tire lever, but if you're able to avoid it, that's the best, because as you're putting this back on with the tire lever, you can pinch the inner tube. So you want to be able to just use your hands and then work the bead on that way. And then this is the last part. It's hard. So the same way of getting the tire off to this point can be really hard. Getting it on can be hard. So start again, opposite, pull, 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 pull. Moment of truth, there we go. And then you want to inspect, make sure that the tube isn't poking out, because if it does kind of poke out, as it inflates, some of the tube can be on the outside of the tire and it will explode. And it sounds very, very loud, especially if you're inside. Okay, and then we're going to pump it up. So for the next one I'm going to do, does anybody have any questions? Clarifications, things to slow down.
I have definitely pinched my own inner tube replacing it. So any tips that you have for that? And I have had 2 or 3 explode on me, and it is the most gigantic, frightening sound, right?
Yeah.
So any tips to avoid that?
Definitely. So as you're doing it, just really focus. I've heard it called walking the bead. You just go all the way around, just checking in between the bead of the tire and the rim. So this little spot right here, if there's any of the tube going there. Also having it be a little bit inflated. So if it looks like this, it's going to push itself into the tire more. But if it's totally deflated, it's more likely to be a little floppy and then not hold the shape of the tire and then get stuck in. Those are the 2 big ones in my experience to prevent the really sonic boom, awful loud thing that happens. Yeah. Any other things to think about as I do the next one? Anything to do a little slower, or questions, clarifications?
Well, maybe it might be helpful. I mean, I'm impressed with your ability to just do that with your hands. I always have to use my tire levers. So maybe you could just maybe demonstrate how, if you have to, how to
Yeah.
get the tire back on the wheel with a lever.
Yeah. So you have like a road bike, Lauren, with
Yeah.
skinny tires.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a situation. If I'm in the shop, there is something called a tire bead jack, which is super helpful. And I will always use that because it makes it easier. And if I have to do it several times in a day, then I want to do the easier thing. But yeah, let me show you kind of safety wise. You can see this is too inflated. There's too much tube for the tire. So I'm going to deflate a little bit. All right, we've got a really cute member of our audience has joined us, which is my baby, Sally. Just got back from a walk there. Starting them young. All right, I deflated it and it's fitting in a lot nicer. So I'm gonna grab my wheel. I got the valve. I'm gonna tighten that so air doesn't get out and deflate. There is our hole. So valve into the rim and going around away from the valve. So we still have this part here. This is a really classic way. So you can see it's not quite on. I just need this last little section. You can use the tire lever here. Just pry it over the rim like so. And that's not going to impact the tube because the tube is over here. The tire lever is going here. So there's no worry there. This is definitely one where you can safely use the tire lever and not worry about it. Okay, now again, starting here, pull the bead over the rim. Boop, 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 boop. And again, we're here to the hard spot. So if I put the tire lever in, there's a chance that we're gonna interact with the tube that's right there. So one thing we can do, deflate a little bit more just by pushing that, and then getting the tube further from this side so it's a little more deflated. So let's see. There it is. And we're at a spot where we're just about to finish. And so we can put this in and then just be really mindful that the tube is not between the bead and the lever. Because what's going to happen is if as you're doing this and the tube is between here and here, the tube is there, then you're going to rub it, you're going to pinch it, you're going to tear it. So just make sure that the tube is here. So as you go like this to get it on, that's not going to happen. So again, the tire bead jack is something that just grabs the bead here and pulls it. But in this case, we can really carefully pry and hopefully get away with it. Just again, being careful to just do this gently and not rubbing or tearing against the inner tube. And I think we have success that time. All right, and then to Wing's question, how do you make sure you don't get it to blow up on you? You're gonna kind of push in and then look into this zone, walk the bead all the way around, make sure your tire's not hemorrhaging, make sure that it's not pulling out more this way, which can leave a space. So just walking the bead all the way around. And then you can pump up a little bit and walk it again. Just kind of cautiously, just making sure it's all sitting correctly before you do the 80, 90, 100 PSI which is a lot of pounds per square inch for a little tube to hold. So if it is strained, then it's going to blow out in that spot. Okay, so it's 5:26. Any last questions in the 4 minutes we have before I put the wheels back on the bike? Oh, those are some fun noises. All right, so I'll start by demoing the rear. So we took it off on the smallest one here. Again, less chain interacting with the wheel. It's furthest away from the wheel. So we'll put it back that way. And I'm going to move this out of the way and then aim for inside the derailleur like that. So one more time, pull on this, aim in front of the derailleur, and then push it on. And there we go. We're past the brakes. And we got our wheel on. We can kind of center it here, tighten up the quick release. And then with the quick release lever, you want it to be pretty hard to engage, but not impossible. So this is a little bit too floppy. I can bring that towards the screen here. This is a little bit too floppy. So then you want to tighten a little bit more. Make sure it's centered again, and then finish it off. So that's still a little bit too floppy. The rule is if you can get it with 2 fingers, it's not tight enough. So now it's gotten to that point. And we did it. Okay. I will do the front wheel on my own time. Want to honor the time limit of 5:30. And yeah, any last questions? Well, thank you so much for Lauren and Repair PDX for inspiring and having the idea for this thing. This is what it looks like after you worked on your bike for 90 minutes. And Wing and Harmony from the city for making this happen. It's really great to be able to do something like this in a COVID safe way. And thanks everybody for participating and showing up today.
Sure thing. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Lauren, for helping coordinate. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for everything, for the lessons and the tools. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for explaining it in such a wonderful way.
Oh, good. Yay. I'm glad everybody got kits that asked for them and it all worked out.
Yeah, the kit idea was pretty cool.
That was super awesome. Well, thank you so much for everybody for joining us. We appreciate having you. Thank you again to Lauren and Andrew for sharing your afternoon, evening with us. And we will see you all next time.
Yay, thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye for now.
Bye.